What's up, guys? I see a lot of players who talk about how they're trying to improve, but it just doesn't seem to be coming to them, and they don't know why. They'll practice and they'll practice, but they struggle with consistently making good decisions throughout the course of a game. If this applies to you, I have great news, because there are 3 tools out there already at your disposal that help immensely with this. All you have to do is use them. These tools are, number 1, the timer, number 2, the damage calc, number 3, the battle log. So, they might seem elementary, but they all operate on the same fundamental principle of helping you make more informed decisions. And that is the core of what winning in Pokemon is about, making good decisions. And in a game of information like Pokemon is, then you want to be making the decisions as informed as possible. You want to know as much as you possibly can about the opposing team. And by using these 3 tools, the timer, the damage calc, and the battle log, then you get you siphon as much information as possible out of what they have shown to you. And that makes your decisions better when you can keep those things in mind. You are no longer grasping blindly at straws in the dark. You know as much as you can get, which is very often a lot. And a lot of information in battles is overlooked, even by good players when they, rush through games. And that makes their decisions worse. So, a common trait of the best players is that they make full use of the timer and the calc, and they definitely pay attention to the battle log. So we're going to be starting off with this example of one of the players most notable for using the timer, Brofist, and in this game Zalmog uses a lot of his timer as well. This is from a couple years ago in Ultra Sun and Moon. And now, look, I'm not saying timeout on turn 1. If you've got a Stealth Rock Heatran against a Ferrothorn, then you should be clicking Stealth Rock instantly. Okay, you don't need to weigh up the pros and cons. Well, what if he stays in? What if he's Choice Band with Bulldoze? You get up rocks there because you need to keep your timer for when you actually need it, so you can plan the game out. But that's the whole thing. You need to use the timer so that you can plan ahead. When you instantly click, then you are very often taking things turn by turn, and even if you're experienced and you know what you need to keep alive and what you need to predict and whatnot, then even then, you just make better decisions when you think it through. You give yourself more time to consider more options, because a lot of time when you're, clicking instantly, then you're making one of 2 decisions, attack or switch, or one certain attack or switch to one certain Pokemon. But when you take your time, then you consider every option, and you say, what if I do this? What will happen then? Then suddenly paths open themselves to you that you would not have noticed otherwise. So let's look at this game. So one reason I want to mention it is not just because they both take plenty of time at Team Preview, as you can see there, but because with Brofist setup here, it's basically knock off the Scarf Magnezone with your Ferrothorn, and then your Superpower Mega Scizor outspeeds it, and so it would be pretty straightforward here, right? Especially because he has a Choice Scarf Greninja, and that seems like a free U-turn. So you could just play this very straightforward and still probably do fine, but he takes his time. And Zalmog takes even more time, actually. So, and this is the lesson I want to drill into players' heads. You do not do better because you move faster. You don't get a reward for instantly clicking. And I've seen some people say, if you know the right move faster, then you're better. No, absolutely not true. Not necessarily true, I should say, because sometimes you're just planning ahead. So a guy who plans ahead and takes more time against a guy who instantly clicks, whether he's predicting or tunnel visioning, doesn't really say anything. So it's all about the quality of the decisions made, and the quality of the decisions made often rests on how informed those decisions are. So here we have the Greninja standoff, and Brofist says, you know what, I'm not risking this Scarf Greninja, and neither does Zalmog. So he makes a great move here, goes to Heatran, and Zalmog goes to his Jirachi, which was his U-turn absorber. I guess he could have gone to Lando. Maybe Lando was the better move, but they both took their time, and this is a game from a long time ago, so I'm sure they had their reasons. But I want to mention, look, turn 1, and the timers are already down. So these are not randomly clicked moves, and that is crucial. So I'm probably overlooking something because I'm not really thinking about the mechanics of this game. So I don't know why you would go to Jirachi over Lando there if you're afraid of the Scarf U-turn. I guess it depends on what Zalmog, because I think Zalmog's Greninja is also Scarf. But yeah, so Rocks and U-turn from this thing, and now Lando comes in. So Gliscor, even then, even the 190, you could say that this is gratuitous. Yeah, you got to get out of there. You got to go to Gliscor every time. But those seconds that show up on the timer, those are not necessarily Brofist going, okay, well, I really need to consider, do I want to keep my Heatran in here? Do I want to, risk it and, Z fire or whatever his Lando as he sets up the rocks? Is that something I need to consider? No, in that situation, probably not. But what he is doing is making note of the team. So this helps him suss out the sets. The Jirachi is slower than the Heatran. Okay, so now it's not a Scarf Jirachi. So because at Team Preview you don't know which of Greninja, Jirachi, Lando, even Magnezone could be a Scarfer. He could have multiple. But now the Jirachi is bulky, so you consider that, especially because he's got a Reuniclus, and bulky Jirachi is famously pretty good against Reuniclus. So he has to keep that in mind. So you can't keep all this stuff in mind. And also means that Scizor is probably going to be pretty good against it. Things like this. I'm probably overlooking a million things because I'm not really thinking about the game. But the whole point is that by taking your time, that you are able to consider these things. And a lot of people say, look, I panic whenever I see the timer. Consider this. I know it seems scary. Oh, 270 seconds left, 2 whatever seconds left. The timer, I forget what it is on ladder, like 180 seconds. Even if it's on ladder, 180 seconds is 3 minutes. 3 entire minutes. So you have plenty of time, and it goes up. The nice thing is, if you plan ahead and you know what moves you're making ahead of time, then you can get a lot of time back. Let's say you're in advance and okay, I'm going to think about this now, I'm going to think about my opponent's team, and then I'm going to make this switch if my opponent does that, and that move if that, and that way you're instantly clicking because you already know what's happening before it happens. You just wait for it to happen, and that gives you your time back. But when you're making those moves, then you have more information behind them, and they are better. So try not to be intimidated by the timer. It takes some getting used to, but on Smog Tours, you start off with 5 entire minutes. That is huge. So yeah, make full use of the timer. So here, Ice Fang, yeah. So here again, he's considering, okay, this is an offensive Lando. I don't want to mess around. I could try to Earthquake the Greninja or the Feeny on the Switch, but it's not worth it. Ice Fang with Rocks Up is still good, and this Lando could be a threat. So Zom was not expecting the faster Ice Fang, so now he's got to switch out. And even then, now Zom has to consider Brofist getting some timer back because he knows, look, I'm still trying to Ice Fang these two on the Switch. That's totally fine because that gives me my Ferrothorn switch in, and I want my Ferrothorn to switch in. So here he's considering, I don't need to talk about everything they're considering because just the fact that they're using their timer means that they're thinking ahead. They're not, whenever you are, thinking, when you are making a decision for any one turn, then usually it's not going to be, people like to refer to everything as a 50-50. Very rarely is that really the case. When you are thinking about any given turn, then you should not be thinking about if he does this, then I X, and if he does that, then I Y. You should be thinking about the longer term implications of it. Can I recover if he does X? Can I recover if he does Y? What would suggest that he would do this? What about his plays? What about his team composition so far? And when keeping in mind the specially defensive Jirachi. So, for example, keeping in mind the sets that you've seen, the damage you've taken, the damage calculator goes into this big time. We haven't seen anything really worth damage calculate. Yeah, everything's been like little dinky hits so far. You're not getting much information out of the Tapu Fini doing 11% to Ferrothorn with Surf. But the damage calc is huge in big games like this because it's just a good habit to get into. I calc all the time. If you've ever watched me ladder, you know I calc all the time. And that's because it makes the decisions more informed. And you'll also notice whenever I rush and I instantly click and I don't calc and I don't think about the long-term effects, then you'll notice it bites me. And that's why I should be doing those things. And yeah, ladder is its own separate thing. Anyway, so here we have that whole thing. You knock off the Scarf Zone and let's finish off another layer of spikes. Cool. So, again, long-term planning here. So, Greninja again. And look, still not risking the Scarf Greninja. And look, there it is. So, U-turn out of Gliscor now. Fini comes in. And, that's just fine and dandy. Because the goal now is the Scizor sweep, so that was planned ahead of time, and plus Gliscor is its own threat on the defog here. So that Ice Fang was a good move because Fini's going to stay alive because Zamok doesn't know what Greninja Brofist is packing, and he wants to keep it around just in case of Ash. And if he goes to Lando and draws Ice Fang, then he can get Kyurem Black in without losing a Pokemon. So now Kyurem comes in here, and Brofist goes to Scizor, and this might seem very simple, right? I mean, the move is almost always Roost, but he's calcing even the superpower, but because what if superpower doesn't KO? Just to be sure, because this is superpower is obviously killing his own from that range, but how dumb would you feel if it lived? Why not make sure? It's not like he's at 30 seconds and you need to instantly click. You do have to be good at managing the timer, but I would much rather someone learn to manage how low their timer gets than to try and convince someone, look, just please think, it will make your decisions better. It's a lot easier to learn to move faster than it is to move slower. So, and it's going to take practice to get into this habit, but it's a good habit to get into, and it's worthwhile. So now he does the calc, he knows, look, I know that Kyurem's not going to have HP Fire because it's paired with Magnezone, that defeats the whole point. So, and I just want to make sure that Superpower KOs, and that Fusion Bolt won't KO me or something dumb. So, or that Earth Power won't. So now he has the Superpower KO and he goes for it right away. So, see, now he has his time back, and now it's, close, or it's far ahead enough to where he knows he can play it more straightforward. He gets the time back. Zamok's time is low because he's trying to scrape his way out of a bad situation, but it wasn't for he's not in this bad situation because he didn't use his timer, and that is really key. So now Earth Power does a lot, but not enough. He's being very, very certain, and here you might think, oh well, how is the move ever not Roost? And instead it's like, well, what if I Bullet Punch on something else? Can I afford that? So he's really just making sure, because again, when you have the time like that, take that time. Nothing is worse than a one game that is rushed and thus turns into a lost game. Absolutely the worst. So, yeah, there we go. So now you can Bullet Punch, not wanting to risk crit if you can help it. So, again, seems like a very safe game. No reason to risk it. But look, you don't get points for playing faster. Use your timer as much as you can. So yes, now stuff happens, and he knows it's a Scarf Greninja, so he can switch Tran into it, and game over. So anyway, it wasn't really about the game. It was about showing just how much good players use the timer and why it's really a good habit to get into. Look, if you're now in old gens where you have a designed lead, then I personally like to know what I'm doing against each lead before a game starts. So that way I'm not losing timer on turn 1. It's a little different for preview generations, but you should be familiar enough with the metagame, through practice and analysis, that you generally know your situations and you know your general calcs. You shouldn't be going, oh, I wonder if Tapu Lele's Psychic kills my Toxapex. You should know that before the game. However, a really handy feature on the damage calc is the ability to put in your exact HP number, so you know if a hit KOs you from a certain range. So let's go to Sun and Moon. So let's go with standard Lando Earthquake against standard Toxapex. So we know that Toxapex does not KO from not get KO'd from full HP, but we want to know what the roll is, the exact roll, because we can put that in. So let's say Toxapex has, 268 HP, right? So what's the roll of a max, because you assume max, so it's a 50% chance that you get KO'd from 268 HP, because if you hover over your Pokemon, then you will see their exact HP number. You don't have to put in, the rough estimate of, 87 that Showdown would give you, or 89. No, you get to put in 268 exactly, or 267, or 266, which still leaves you at 88. So, see, now it's at 266, and it's a 56.3% chance to KO. And you might think, well, how do I know what their spreads are? They're not always going to be, standards. Very true, but again, that's where the calc comes in. And I'm betting that in that game and, every other high-level game, then those guys are calcing a ton because they're trying to figure out the spreads on the opposing Pokemon. I mean, sometimes you can suss out how much special attack an Assault Vest Tornadus Therian has in Oris, and you can plan around that. You can plan, look, is this going to be KOing my, low HP Clefable or not? Same with things like Bulky Rotom in Oris. And you get to, in those unknown scenarios of how much special attack does something have, then you can do this. Like, even for like small resisted hits, like you can see if an Infernape using U-Turn is banded or not. Or you can see how much in DPP, and you can see how much attack a Jirachi has. Is this bulky, or is this more offensive, or is it somewhere in the middle? Or do you have to be wary of both possibilities? And when you have this information, then you are able to lock down what their set is more easily. And by knowing a certain set on a certain Pokemon, then you are able to make inferences about the rest of their team. So if we go back to this game, then let's just pretend that Jirachi switched in and took a certain amount from a certain attack, and Brofist was like, okay, so that's specially defensive, so that's not going to be Scarf, and thus I'm able to make the inference that one of Greninja or Lando is Scarf to keep things like DD Zard X in check. So things of that nature. Not a perfect example, of course, but that was the game I wanted to use to highlight. So, yeah, you use the calc, see how much attack, because some Scarf, a lot of this comes with metagame knowledge, like knowing that some Scarflando run bulk and not as much attack. But again, is that Scarflando spamming U-turn? Look, do the calc. See how much that U-turn does. Because look, if the Lando U-turn is doing 8% to Toxapex, then it's not max attack, because it would have done 9.5. And a Showdown, and this brings us to our last point, the battle log. Because the Showdown log, it shows you exactly how much damage you took, and hopefully I can get a game with this team. It shows you exactly how much damage you took. If you took 13.4, then you can factor that into the damage calc. So, anyway, so we're not really focused on winning this game. That's my excuse. Let me adjust the dimensions. So, what we're looking for here is just to show how the log works, specifically with Sand. This is really Sand and ability activation. So the first thing I want to stress is if there are two T-Tars here, then the faster T-Tar will set up Sandstream. What else? If there was a Salamence and a T-Tar, then if Salamence's Intimidate goes first, then Salamence is the faster Pokemon. Most Salamence are faster than T-Tar, but, So if T-Tar used Sand first, then it would be, or got Sand first. This is especially notable in Ubers. And finally, switching. You know, if both players switch at the same time, the faster Pokemon switches. So let's say that I switch, this Jynx switches, and my opponent's T-Tar here switches as well. I would switch first because I'm faster than any T-Tar. So you can suss out things like Choice Scarfs in later generations from that kind of thing. So the battle log, you know, who switched out first, whose ability activated first. Like if you have in Sun and Moon, if you have a Pressure Weavile activating before a Scarf Land. If you have a Scarf Lando and you lead off with it and your opponent has a Pressure Weavile and Pressure activates first, then you know that it's a Scarf Weavile. Things like that. So you have to be aware of those. Obviously, you know, speed ties don't give it away, but yeah. So, you know, let's just hope this isn't Lum. Because, why did I click? I thought that was Lovely Kiss. Whoops. Well, that was stupid. Okay, so let's just try to... Whoops. Yeah. Thank God I put that disclaimer. Alright. Anyway, so now we hopefully just kill this T-Tar. You know, fat chance, but... probably Lum anyway. Yeah, it was definitely Lum. So, yeah, we're gonna... Oh, darn. Please don't KO me. Oh, no. Okay, well, now we're just gonna go Surf. Alright, see how Starmie got leftovers first? That's because Starmie is faster. Disclaimer, Poison Heal is not revealing of who is faster. So like in DPP, if you have a Skarmory getting lefties first and then Breloom gets Poison Heal, or I think it's the other way around, but that does not tell you if Breloom is faster or not. So keep that in mind. But leftovers, you know, dead giveaway. So... let's say that this sand-affected Pokemon... So again, Starmie getting hit by sand and getting leftovers first because it's faster than the Zapdos. So, that's another thing to keep in mind. So we have... Yeah, even... So I'm 329, so I know I'm faster than even Tip and Zapdos. Anyway, so that's something to keep in mind. So let's take another example of... Let's say that this is a Steel type. And see, now I know that the Zapdos is... You know, 244 or more speed because it outsped me, and you know we're gonna calc to see just what kind of a Zapdos that is. So I think it's offensive, but now I can put in my Celebi set, which is 389, which is I think like 208. No, it's a little less. Yeah, 192. So that did 23.9%. So we know that this Zapdos is modest. Perfect. You know, so now we know it's not just offensive, but we know it's modest offensive. So we're definitely losing this game. But yeah, so let's pretend that this Metagross showed lefties. And so Celebi would take sand first no matter what, because it only takes sand. But then the Metagross, if it was faster, would also take lefties. So let's just HP Fire just so things go down. Hopefully he mashes. Oh, don't be Bandit. Oh, nuts. Okay, well... Hopefully this thing doesn't Thunder Wave. That would suck. Hopefully I freeze him or something. Anyway. Oh, Milotic. Great. Oh, yeah, now I can spam Thunderbolt on this thing. God, that does a lot because I'm modest Starmie, because I'm awesome. Anyway. So, points being... Oh, that thing's cruising for a... You know what? Okay. I'm going to resist my urge to click instantly. I know, it's so tempting, but you have to resist it. So, offensive Starmie. So, modest versus standard Zapdos. So, that did 32. So, now I can put in 68%. Remember, Showdown shows it as a little higher than it is. But, you know, we have around a 68 point... Let's call it a 69% chance, you know, because... LOL, first of all, and also because freeze and crits. So, that's... I'm not just going, well, I hope this Ice Beam KOs. Now, there's also a good chance that it's a little invested, which makes my odds at KOing here a lot worse. You know, because it took so little from Thunderbolt. Could still be, because of the way Showdown rounds, it could still be, you know, within KO range, but, you know, odds are my odds aren't so great. But I'm just going to go for Ice Beam here anyway, because I need it, and I get a crit anyway. So, yeah, I need to do as much as possible because of my wonderful, what's it called? Jinx maneuver. And Hydro... Now, that was an example of I know the tier, so I know Claydol dies, because I'm modest Starmie. So, yeah, so see, Hydro from... Oh, that's 100%. Yeah, 68.8. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that was not the best example of that. I probably should have played more safely and just let it blow up on Metagross or something, just so I still have my Starmie. Mainly because I need my yeah. So I'm showing you the best and the worst in this game. See what happens when you use the calc and are more mindful of the game state as a whole, instead of just, oh, I need to win this turn. Instead thinking, what do I need to do to win the game at the end? You know, it doesn't matter if all 5 of my Pokemon die before I send out my 6th, if my 6th automatically wins on the spot. So, you know, in this situation, I should have gone, okay, well, I'm going to try and win with Starmie, but that means I have to, you know, because Starmie has great odds at beating Milotic, I should have just gone to Metagross there on the, and not risk the Hydro Pump miss/roll. Because, you know, 69% again, not very good odds. Well, I mean, they're fine odds, but I didn't need to risk it. So, again, and the decisions... Oh, that was mean. Okay. Anyway, so you also you get a bonus example of how mean people can be on the Showdown ladder. Anyway, so now you know, use the calc, be aware of the game state, you know, think... you have to think more, you have to think past the current turn. You know, that's a big part in being consistent. And if you want to think past the current turn, then you have to, you know, take some time. You have to slow down, you have to use the timer, you have to calc all the information you have. Like, you know, we also know that Mata Zapdos tends to run some bulk because it doesn't always need to run max speed. So we could have said, all right, well, that's worse for our odds against with that Ice Beam. So, I mean, it was still probably a good chance to KO, and we still probably need to go for it anyway, but, you know, something to keep in mind. Anyway, so, yeah, offensive Claydolls definitely die to Hydro, but not Surf. But, and even Max HP has a good chance to die. So, anyway, that was another example game, so thank you guys for watching. I hope this helps, you know, because I know how frustrating it can be to feel like, look, why am I, you know, not winning? Why am I doing so badly? And, you know, everyone falls into this trap. Good players, too. And also me. But it really does boil down to, I have to slow down. You know, if you're tilting, you got to step away, as impossible as that is. But you got to do that, because as soon as you start rushing through games, that's when you start doing worse. So, slow down, use the timer, use the calc, pay attention to the battle log. So, yeah, so... that's pretty much everything, I guess. So, another sub-half-hour video. I am awesome. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was useful for you, and I will catch you next time.